I feel that the opportunity that I have when I come in your midst is it really amounts to one thing, and that is to share with you an enhanced and ever vibrant, ever increasing enthusiasm for what Gurudeva has given to us. And two stories, really. One is that when I was a young devotee just starting on the path, I lived near our ashram in Encinitas in California, where Guruji's hermitage is, where, of course, many of you have visited there, where he wrote autobiography and some of his other books. And one evening, we had a group of young adults in early 20s, late teens, early 20s, and so on. And for this young adults group, there was a satsang with one of our senior monastics. We knew her as Sister Shanti. She was beautiful, lifelong monastic renunciant there at our Encinitas ashram. And she told us this story. She said some years back she had been, she worked in the office of our revered Sangamata Dayamataji. And one day she went to Ma and said, "Oh, Ma, it's just so difficult. I just feel I have not enough energy. There's not enough vitality, and I'm really getting worn down by trying to keep up with the routine, keep up with the duties." And she told us, Dayamataji just looked at her with those blazing blue eyes, just radiating divine power, and took her hand and just bopped her, tapped her on the medulla, on that divine center at the base of the skull, and said, "What we need here is more enthusiasm." And Sister Shanti told us that just that divine touch, there was such and the accompanying conviction in Ma's words, she felt just uplifted and renewed and completely recharged. So I heard this story. It was very inspiring. And then not long after that, I entered the ashram myself as a young monk and was going through a similar set of struggles. There was a whole new routine in the ashram, coming from the life of living as a devotee outside the world, where we get to pick and choose what we want to do and when we want to do it, and maybe not now for this, and I'll do that one later, and it's all very nice and comfortable. And we come in the ashram, and one of the great, not only challenges, but of course in the end, it's a life-changing blessing, is the routine. The get up much earlier than I had been accustomed to, the meditation at these fixed times, the outdoor work that we all performed as seva to the Guru, and it was quite an adjustment for me in the first few months. I was having a hard time keeping up. And then I remembered this story that Sister Shanti had told us about Ma's words when she said, "What we need here is more enthusiasm." So I took that I said, I can put that into practice. And every morning when I came out of the ashram, out of the front door, and we would walk, those of you who have been there in Encinitas, you know where the ashram for the young monks is there on one corner of the ashram, and we would walk up through the forest, through the hill, up to the public gardens overlooking the ocean, where we would sweep the walks and clean the facilities and look after the flowers and the plants and so on. And as I would step out that door and walk up that hill to perform those duties, I started making one affirmation or one mantra, remembering this story of Sister Shanti's. And I would just repeat, "Lord, flood my consciousness with divine enthusiasm. Flood my consciousness with divine enthusiasm. Flood my consciousness with divine enthusiasm." And I kept on like that, day after day, week after week. And it totally changed. It totally changed my life. It was the difference between a routine that was perhaps a weight or a difficulty into one where there was always that sense of enthusiastic opportunity to serve, to be part of Guruji's mission. Now, I'm telling you this story for a reason. How many of us have read Autobiography of a Yogi? And I think probably 99.5% had the consciousness or the reaction at some point during that marvelous journey of learning about Guruji's life and getting to know him and his teachings. We had the wish in our consciousness, oh, if only I could have been here when he was here. Oh, if only I could have been in his company. If I could have been there to receive his training. And it's a bit of a tradition on our path, I think. I think you'll all identify with this. It's a bit of a tradition where we carry that same consciousness to the next generation. Well, I wasn't here during Guruji's lifetime, but oh, if only I could have been here in Dayamata's lifetime. Oh, if only I could have spent more time around Swami Anandamoy or Bhaktinandaji or those others who were in that first generation. Yes? Yes? They sound familiar? All right. Well, it's understandable. I certainly, and it's wonderful. Of course, there's a great blessing from having that association and that contact. We all cherish it. And yet at the same time, if we depend on it, we're only shortchanging ourselves. We're only shortchanging ourselves because Guruji said this work will go on generation after generation. And he said, when I am gone, the teachings will be the Guru. And he didn't stop there. He said, through the teachings, through the practice of the techniques, you will be in tune with me and with the great Gurus who sent me. So the reason I'm telling that story is because it wasn't so much that when I heard Sister Shanti's story, I said, oh, if only Ma would knock me on the medulla, then everything would be fine. It isn't. We can take the principle, we can take the inspiration and turn it into something that becomes a personal experience for each one of us. That's what I'm trying to get across to you. You take the vision of that possibility and you find a way to turn it into an affirmation, a mantra, a devotional invocation. And you get all the benefits, you get all the blessings, all the power, all the effects, as if it had happened in a physical encounter. And this isn't just my experience. From talking to many, probably some of you who are here today, I know that you have experienced this. And it's not your imagination. It's not imagination. It becomes, as the years go by, it becomes so real, that presence, that access to divine resources, to divine truth, to that, as I said in the beginning, that divine affectionate presence of our ever-living Satguru, who only wants to take us by the hand and walk with us along the way to that great freedom, that great spiritual light and assurance that he himself lived in and exuded to all who crossed his path.